tutare ture Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare Ture Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare Ture Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha Om Tare Ture Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha.
Welcome everyone to the Lama live stream event of Lama Sultrim Alyone. I'm Drimé and I encourage you all to say hello in the chat as well. And today we are very, very fortunate to have Polyvagal as our guest teacher. Polyvagal is a Tara Mandala senior authorized teacher and has been a devoted student of Lama Sultrim Alyone since 1992. She has also studied with Lama Alan Wallace for over 3 decades. She has studied shamatha, the 4 applications of mindfulness, the 7-point mind training, the 4 immeasurables, dzogchen, and other practices. She has received teachings from many other Tibetan teachers, including Kalachakra and dzogchen teachings from His Holiness the Dalai Lama in the late 1980s. Poly is a trauma and dharma-informed marriage and family therapist and a certified Feeding Your Demons therapist. Her private psychotherapy practice in California and Nevada spans 38 years. She is a student in the Magyu, Gateway, and also Nintig programs and leads the Tara Mandala Northern Sierra Sangha. She lives in the Sierra Mountain town of Truckee, California, and is the mother of 2 daughters and a son, and has a granddaughter. At the end of our gathering, you will have the opportunity to make an offering of dana to Polyvagal in gratitude for our time together today, and I will talk more about it closer to the end of our event. Before I turn it over to Poly, I'd like to share with you a few upcoming programs being held by Tara Mandala, but let me start with a special invitation for you to attend an event celebrating the life and legacy of Lama Sultrim Alyone, happening Saturday, November 5th. Please remember you need to register in order to participate. I'll be posting the link to do so shortly. A part of November 5th event will be a brief live auction. On offer will be a range of special items, including a 1-month solo retreat on the land at Tara Mandala in Colorado, a year's access to all of Tara Mandala's online programs, and a sacred item donated by Lama Sultrim Alyone to be announced at the event. Our Raise the Kata moment on November 5th will be your opportunity to make a gift to the 75th birthday celebration at any level that fits your circumstances. All donors will receive a special gift from Lama. Bring your kata to the event and we will encourage you to raise them on screen. Then the following Saturday, November 12th, there will be a 1-day program, Sacred World, Navigating Life with Courage, Savvy, and Grace, to be led by Elizabeth Mathis Namgyal. You will have a chance to explore the sacred world informed by the foundational teachings of Buddha Dharma and the developing of our capacity to experience the world with depth, compassion, and courage. And also, I have a big pleasure of announcing the first program of 2023 called Resting in the Eye of the Storm with our guest teacher today, Polyvagal, that will be held from January 27th to 29th. In this retreat, we will take a deep dive into trauma and suffering, combining wisdom from Buddhism, modern psychology, and neuroscience. Through teachings, discussion, and meditation, we will introduce you to numerous methods to skillfully bring suffering in all its forms onto the path of awakening. all that remains for me to do is to give a warm welcome to our guest teacher, Polly Ryan, in her first visit to Lama Live. Thank you so kindly for being with us today, Polly.
Thank you so much, Drimé, and the wonderful, beautiful way that you hold Lama Live, and this really amazing opportunity for all of us to be together in this way and connect with Lama Sultram. And I'm really delighted to be here with all of you. It's the 33rd Lama Live, and I'm so happy to be a guest. So we shall begin by raising our intention, our motivation, our bodhicitta. So allowing yourself to settle into your place, wherever you're sitting, wherever you are throughout the entire world, and drop into presence from distraction. Come into the space of your physical body. Feel where your seat meets the ground beneath you or the chair beneath you. Feel the shape of your body. Feel the beating of your heart. Sense the stable, steady earth, ever present, grounded beneath you. And take a moment to rest. Just be. It's like resting in the eye of the storm, the eye of suffering and cyclic existence. So suffering is something we all experience. And really settle. And take a moment to begin to notice the ways in which you have suffered in your life, the pain you may feel, and then expand that out to sense the pain and difficulties and suffering of others around you. The Buddha called this dukkha, suffering. Your loved ones, your friends, your family, your neighbors, expanding out to your town, your city, your state, your country. In these degenerate times, there's so much suffering. And as you feel into that, allow it to awaken your heart and your motivation. This deep motivation to be of benefit to others who, like us, wish to be happy and free of suffering. And from there, raising the intention for our sacred time together, listening to the teachings, contemplating and meditating together, and doing that for the sake of all beings and to fully awakened, to become fully awakened, to become Buddhas for the sake of all. Thank you. So next, prayer requests. We have a few today. And as I read them, really kind of feel into these people wherever they are in the world and send them prayers to meet their suffering and their needs at this time. So Naomi Weisler and her children, Aaron, Cara, Tom, and Jack in London, England. Donald Mason in Hartsdale, New York. Sophia Ross, Portland, Oregon. Michelle Giorio, Harsbrook Heights, New Jersey. Noreen Kelly, Cork, Ireland. Rest in peace. And finally, Sarah Blumenthal in New York, New York. Thank you. So today I'd like to give you a little appetizer to the upcoming retreat in January. It'll be the first retreat that Tara Mandala is offering virtually for the new year of 2023. And it's called Resting in the Eye of the Storm, Practices for Hope, Healing, and Resilience. And I want to begin by sharing a bit of a story from early in my career as a psychotherapist. When I started working, I was working with children who had been neglected and traumatized and abused. And I used a lot of art therapy when I was working with children. And one of the methods that I used was called nightmare help. And so I would talk to the children about what they had gone through and ask them what they had experienced, and we would talk about it. And then I would ask them, what was the most painful moment for you? Like, when did you feel the most scared and the most upset and the most hurt? And then I would have them draw this, and I would have a piece of paper and all kinds of art materials, and they would draw me a picture and bring me into their experience. One of the things I noticed is that they would be crying, and sometimes the tears would be flying off their cheeks in their drawing, and then create a river, like a river of sorrow. And for some of them, there was actually someone harming them. And what struck me is that there was a smile on that person's face. And this was so distressing and disturbing for me as a young therapist seeing this. And I realized that those people, the perpetrators, were also abused, and those before them also abused and hurt and harmed and experiencing suffering and trauma and pain. And that this is something we all feel. We're all connected in this way by suffering, and the Buddha taught about this. In fact, it was this intense suffering that opened his heart of compassion. He had lived such a sheltered life in the castle, but when he finally went out into the world, he saw the suffering of the world around him, and it opened his heart. And he wanted to do something about it. He wanted to know what causes this and what can we possibly do about it. And so he took this journey to awakening. And it was really this incredible pain and suffering that he saw in old age, sickness, and death. And he wanted to know why. What is the cause of this? So when I was in graduate school, my very first assignment was to write about my theory of change. And of course, I thought, that's why I'm in grad school. I don't really know yet. And so I went to the library. We had to go to the library. I did my whole graduate work, not online. There were no computers. And some of you might remember back in those days. And so I would go to the library and look up microphage and what is change and how does it happen? And what I found, what I ran into actually was the Four Noble Truths. And there was this line in what I read about how people change, and it's that people change when they're suffering and they know they're suffering. That's when they have a chance at being motivated to change and to do something about what they're experiencing. And so suffering motivates us, right? It motivates us to do something, to go to the doctor, to get help in some way, psychological help or physical help. But it also spurs us to go deeper into spirituality, into Dharma, into finding out how do we end suffering for ourselves and for all beings. So how was suffering described by the Buddha? So this is really the base of his teachings. He said, all I teach is suffering and the end of suffering. And so in a way, the teachings of Buddhism apply to all of us because we all experience suffering, don't we? His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, in the same way that physical pain unifies our sense of having a body, we can conceive of the general experience of suffering acting as a unifying force that connects us with others. Perhaps that is the most basic element that we share with others, the factor that unifies us with all living creatures. So it might seem kind of strange that that's what unifies us, suffering, but indeed in cyclic existence, samsara, it's characterized by pain and suffering. And the Buddha identified 3 different kinds of suffering: the suffering, the suffering of change, and all pervading suffering in the making. So generally speaking, the suffering of suffering is one that we're all familiar with, right? The pain of birth, old age, sickness, and death, as the Buddha described it. So this is that physical and emotional pain, the obvious suffering that we experience through physical discomfort. I was thinking about how, you lose your job, your beloved leaves you or dies, you wreck your car, and then you get COVID. So that just kind of like tangible, like pain and frustration and upset about all of life's injustices. Or we get worried about money or even trying to meet other people's expectations. So this is the suffering of suffering. And then he talked about the suffering of change. So when you do finally get what you want, you can't hold on to it, can you? Even if things are going great now, it's just a matter of time. Even the richest, most successful people in the world will eventually lose it all, if not now, when they pass. So this is the suffering that is caused by the fact that life is constantly changing. And doesn't it seem like the moment you found happiness in life, it disappears almost all at once? And the truth is that no moment is reliable because the next moment is always coming along fast on its heels. And it's like a constant bombardment of change that undermines every state of happiness. So it's not lasting. And our mind has a hard time finding a place to sit back and enjoy life without fear. And then the final one, all pervading suffering in the making. And this is the type of suffering we're most likely not to recognize. Yet it's probably the most instructive when we do recognize it, because it's this general background of anxiety and insecurity that colors really all of our happiest moments. Because deep down we fear that life doesn't offer us solid ground and that our very existence is questionable. And really, from a Buddhist point of view, these doubts are well-founded, right? And when we do look at them, it gives us glimpses of wisdom. And so every day, even in the most pleasant moments, don't you sometimes experience this just kind of nagging, underlying unease about the future and what it brings? And so this worry and this underlying anxiety is a manifestation of this 3rd type of suffering that the Buddha identified. And it's really about life's underlying inherent unsatisfactoriness due to really intrinsic stability, this intrinsic stability of cyclic existence. So the Buddha called this dukkha. And I'm just going to say a few English words for dukkha to to show you sort of how it goes from this discernible quality of being, just kind of underlying nagging on the one hand, to something like a severe mental or physical anguish. So faint unsettledness, irritation, impatience, annoyance, frustration, disappointment, dissatisfaction, aggravation, tension, stress, anxiety, vexation, pain, desperation, sorrow, sadness, suffering, misery, agony, anguish, terror. So you can see that going from that barely discernible nagging quality to severe mental or physical anguish and terror. So I want to pause for a moment and ask you to just check in with your body. So all this talk so far about suffering, how does your body feel? So you might notice that you feel a sense of connection, safety, regulated, or calm activation. So that's one state. You might feel fight or flight, like, when is this going to be over? Can't we talk about something more pleasant? Can't we be more positive? I want to get out of here. You might end meeting, hit the end meeting button, so like to get away. You might also notice a feeling of disconnection, shutting down, collapsing, dissociating. So just notice how your body feels right now. So I'm going to segue into talking a little bit about our nervous system and how experiencing suffering and pain and trauma affects our nervous system. So this is our human body. We are in this karmic expression of a human body with a human nervous system. And so I want to give you just a little tidbit, sneak preview of what I'll be talking more about in Resting in the Eye of the Storm. And so I want to talk just a little bit about polyvagal theory, and then how we might be able to use this understanding of our human nervous system, in particular autonomic nervous system, to stabilize our meditation practice and our life. So polyvagal theory was created in the 1990s by Stephen Porges. And it explains the science of connection, and then it offers a map of our nervous system to help us anchor ourselves and each other in safety and regulation, even in the midst of the constant challenges to our sense of equilibrium. And there are many these days. And then I also want to make mention of another person, Deb Dana, and she wrote a book called Anchored. And she's been collaborating with Stephen Porges to translate this science of polyvagal theory into clinical application. And she describes polyvagal theory as, quote, the science of feeling safe enough to fall in love with life and take the risks of living. And then she also states, quote, the autonomic nervous system is at the heart of our daily experiences, our stories about who we are, how the world works, what we do, and how we feel all emerge from the autonomic nervous system. It's our biology that shapes our experiences of safety and connection. And while we might think our brains are navigating the show, really, the way we navigate the world begins in our body with our autonomic nervous system, this body. this karmic expression of the human body and the autonomic nervous system has actually evolved over thousands and thousands of years. So this word autonomic refers to the autonomic way it functions for survival. Automatically, it regulates our internal organs and all of our bodily processes, like our heartbeat, like our breathing rhythms, our blood pressure, our digestion, our metabolism. And then the role of the autonomic nervous system is to store and conserve and release energy that helps us to move safely through our lives. And it allows us to function. However, if we're being hyper aroused, we're hyper vigilant, we're always on guard, or if we're frozen and we're shut down, we're dissociated, this is not really ideal for everyday interactions. And so polyvagal theory is also referring to the vagus nerve, which is the 10th cranial nerve that interfaces with our parasympathetic control of our heart and our lungs and our digestive tract. And it has two nerves, one to the right, one to the left. And it's the longest nerve of the autonomic nervous system in our body. And it has both sensory and motor fibers. So really briefly, I want to explain a few important terms to help you understand polyvagal theory. And this is really the basic language of the nervous system. So we're social creatures, and in order to survive, our body works to find clues, and it processes and it responds to the environment. And so our autonomic nervous system allows us to function and to kind of scan and look around within ourselves and also in our environment and between us. So a few words that are going to be important to know for polyvagal theory. So there's these three aspects to our autonomic nervous system. So the first one is the ventral vagal system. So that's where we feel safe, connected, regulated, and there's a kind of calm activation. And you can kind of, again, check in, where are you? And the next one is sympathetic, fight or flight. And then the third is called dorsal vagal. And this is where we shut down, we're disconnected. We begin to collapse and dissociate. So those three words, ventral vagal, sympathetic, dorsal vagal. So then the next word I want to share with you, or idea, concept of polyvagal theory, is neuroception. So this is basically our environmental alert system, neuroception. So this is it's unconscious, so it operates largely outside of our awareness, that we might be aware of it at times. And so it's this constant evaluation of safety and risk, and it reflexively triggers shifts in our autonomic state. Oh, maybe relax, but then something might trigger us, and now we're on high alert, or we're in fight or flight, or we're shutting down. And so it's constantly giving us information. And so it's looking at several different things. So neuroception might bring a response of safety, and that brings alive the ventral vagal state that I mentioned. That helps us move out into the world. We feel safe and we're able to connect. We might also have a neuroception of danger, which activates the sympathetic state, or fight or flight. We want to run away, or we want to fight. Sometimes people feel that in their hands, like wanting to fight, or their legs get activated, like they want to run, or they literally do. And then the last one of neuroception is where the threat is so great that it puts us into a place of dorsal shutdown. And so we shut down, we go numb. And then neuroception is also following several streams of awareness that are working all the time. So one is inside in the body, listening inside our body, and the other is outside. So it's listening outside of our body. And then between. So this is taking information that comes from interactions between us and others. So it's important to remember that neuroception is working outside the level of our conscious awareness, and it is at work all the time, micro moment to micro moment, and it moves us up and down the hierarchy of our nervous system. And ordinarily, we can't control neuroception. It's simply our responses to all the stimuli that we're picking up in the world, outside our body, inside our body, and between ourselves and others in the world. And so what we can do is bring perception, awareness to neuroception, and then make this implicit sort of autonomic system more explicit, more conscious, more intentional, and make it alive so we can work with it. One concept that, or really it's a metaphor that Deb Dana uses, is this metaphor of anchoring, or an anchor. And the metaphor refers to how an anchor digs into the ocean floor. And so it goes into the ocean floor, but then there's enough line between the anchor and the boat at the surface of the water to then hold the boat safely in one place. So there's enough leeway to move in response to the changes in the sea and the wind and so forth. So it's not too taut, but it's not too loose so that the boat will drift too far afield. So our sense of safety and calm comes with this firmly embedded anchor with just the right amount of line. And when we're anchored, we have this sense of being safely held so we can venture out without going adrift. So first, we're connected to a sense of regulation in our body, and we have the room to get out and explore the world. And really, we're all trying to anchor in the state of safety that supports our connection to ourself and to others around us, and then to the world and to spirit. And when the inner workings of our body, our biology, are mysterious to us, we start to feel a bit at the mercy of unpredictable experiences. And so this sense of establishing this secure anchor first within our body, it really helps to create resilience and connection. And once we really know how our nervous system is working, it helps us to navigate this world we live in with a sense of at least internal safety and ease. So that's on a relative level. But I want to ask a question about what if we take that further and we anchor into the ground of being, into our true nature, our Buddha nature. And if we can anchor into our Buddha nature, our true nature, then doesn't that help us settle within the eye of the storm of suffering, of old age, sickness, and death? The Buddha says of suffering too that we don't get what we want, we get what we don't want, we're separated from those we love, and we have to be near those we loathe. So might that not help us then to navigate this world that we live in? So I wanted to say a little bit about what Lama Tsultrim teaches about our fundamental condition actually being in the ground of being, and how our individual consciousness splits from the ground of being by radiating from the ground of being. And as we radiate from the ground of being, there's this moment where we become aware of our separation. And from that awareness of the separation, there's that core anxiety that just is always underlying there. And this is what I've been talking about, dukkha. The Buddha called it dukkha, suffering. And then from the core anxiety, we're motivated. We want to get rid of it. And so we develop all these strategies to deal with it, to cope with it. And these are passion, where we want to draw in to others, to be one, to bring things in. And then there's aggression, is to move people and things and situations that are threatening to us away. And then there's ignorance, like spacing out and detaching and dissociating, shutting down, we've been talking about. So these are the three poisons of passion, aggression, and ignorance. And how we deal with the split that we call dualism, and then all that anxiety that arises from this feeling of separateness, it begins to proliferate, and we're literally heading out in the wrong direction. And this is what creates samsara. This is what creates the cyclic existence that we are living in. And this mind stream goes on and on and on, and it's always trying to resolve this basic split. But unfortunately, our efforts are ineffective. And so now we turn to meditation, the practice of meditation, that returns us to being integrated with the ground of being, anchoring into the ground of being. And then we can be present, alive, and we can feel this sense of integration. And so all of our meditations are really to return us to our true nature and to liberate us from all of the suffering of cyclic existence. So there are lots of meditative methods that we all know about, and I wanted to share one in particular that I really appreciate. It's a Tonglen that Lama Tsultrim created or developed, called Taking and Waking. And I really appreciate this practice because it's something that you can do on the go all the time. I do it while I'm working with clients. I mean, I think what a therapist does with their mind when they're working to help people really matters. And so I'm often doing some form of Tonglen while I'm practicing and helping people in my private practice. So I wanted to say just a little bit about this practice of Tonglen, and then I'll guide you through a meditation of taking and waking. So the reason we practice Tonglen is to develop compassion. And Tong means to give or to send, and Len means to take. And so in general, in Tonglen, we're sending out positive qualities, and then we're taking in the suffering of others. Now, I want to share a story about the birth of Tara that particularly touches my heart. And it's this very beautiful poetic expression of compassion. And Avalokiteshvara was a great bodhisattva, and he embodied awakened, limitless compassion. And all in countless worlds. And he applied himself, and he attended to each and every sentient being, and always striving to be of service. So now eons have gone by, and he pauses for a moment to take stock and examine the fruits of all of his labor. And when he looked around at the vast expanse of countless sentient beings, what he saw is that suffering was still endless, and it just broke his heart. And in that moment, he burst into tears. And out of one of his teardrops arose Tara, and she embodies dynamic compassion in action. And she said to him, Avalokita, Avalokita, don't despair. I will help you. And so being moved to action to alleviate the suffering in the world and have methods to do so is really, I think, something we all aspire for. Maybe as human beings, we hope to, and definitely as Buddhists. And one thing we all share in common, of course, is our experience of pain and suffering. And actually, this can bring us together. This can bring us all together, caring about each other's difficulties as much as we care about our own. So I want to mention the base of this practice because this is really very important. The base of the practice of Tonglen is emptiness. And this is the understanding that all things and ourselves are empty of the values, the reality, the tensions that we give them. That things as they appear are not as they seem. And our perceptions and what we see in our environment, they seem to be existing, of course, but in fact, they don't exist in the solid, separate way that they might seem to. And you can think about all the things that you live with and you believe to be real. But then when we break them down, we find that they are actually empty of the reified reality that we give to them. So emptiness means that all phenomena, everything, us and everything, is devoid of any real, solid, lasting, absolute existence. There was an example that Thich Nhat Hanh gave. He held up a piece of paper and he said, if you are a poet, you will clearly see that there is a cloud floating in this sheet of paper. Without a cloud, there will be no rain. Without rain, the trees cannot grow. And without trees, we cannot make paper. The cloud is essential for the paper to exist. So we can say that the cloud and the paper inter-are. So he called emptiness interbeing. And without realizing this, it's hard to have compassion and love for the world that we live in. I also love Joanna Macy's definition of emptiness. She called it the mutual belonging of everything in the web of life. The mutual belonging of everything in the web of life. So we really must have this basic understanding of emptiness, because if we don't have that for this practice of Tonglen, we really lack the base of the practice. Sometimes people think that when you do Tonglen, you might injure yourself if you're taking on the suffering of others. But because of emptiness, we practice Tonglen without injuring ourselves, because we have the flash of emptiness. We are connected to the ground of being. So if we bring the suffering of others into our hearts and flash on this natural luminosity, our true nature, then that suffering is completely purified and we're not taking it on, so to speak. So the fabric of emptiness and compassion actually protects us. And it's because there's really nothing to stick to. And the more we can let go of our fear of negativity and realize emptiness, then, of course, the more goodness that we have to give out to the world. So I'd like to take you through this practice of taking and waking. And I'll describe the practice briefly, and then we'll practice together. So in the practice, as you inhale, you're imagining that the cognitive and emotional veils of non-recognition, not recognizing who we truly are, the ground of being. So those veils of non-recognition that then obscure the minds of beings are being pulled away. It's like you're breathing that in, taking that in, like suctioning it, like a vacuum, pulling it off, a wind that removes the veils, that covers the true nature of beings. And then they remember who they really are, their original face, their true condition. And then they wake up completely. And then on the exhale, that recognition is stabilized. So that's really a description of the basic practice, and we'll actually begin with ourselves. It's so hard sometimes for us to have compassion for ourselves. We can be so hard on ourselves sometimes, and the self-loathing that Westerners in particular, but that people often feel. So bringing compassion and loving kindness to ourselves, removing the veils of our own that we experience that cover our true nature. So we'll begin with ourselves, and then people close to us, then beings around us, around you, connected to you. And then we'll move to beings in the world who are really obstructed or in need of help. And then finally expanding out to include all immeasurable mothers, sentient beings. And then by the end, when we get to the end, it'll be all beings are seen in a state of stable realization of their true nature. Okay. So I'm going to take a little pause here, and you can too. Invite you to join me. So coming back into your body. And as you draw your attention into your physical body, notice where you're holding tension in your physical body. And then on the next in breath, carry the breath to those places and hook that tension and release it as you exhale. And now notice any emotional tension that you might be feeling right now. And then notice where you're holding emotional tension in your physical body. And then carry the breath to those places now, hooking the tension, and then releasing it as you exhale, letting it go. And now notice any mental tension that you might be feeling right now. And mental tension is the tension that's created by our worries and our thoughts and our ruminations and all the stories spiraling in our minds. And notice now where you're holding mental tension in your physical body. And then carry the gentle breath to those places now, hooking that tension, releasing it as you exhale. Just let it go. Let it go for now. You could always get it back. And now generating Bodhicitta. That we do this practice of taking and waking. We do it for the sake of all beings without a single exception. And we do it to awaken, to fully awaken, to be of the greatest possible benefit to all. So I invite you to anchor into the ground of being, into the Great Mother. So we begin. We'll begin with ourselves. And as you inhale, imagine that the veils, the cognitive and emotional veils of non-recognition that obscure your mind are removed. As though your breath is a wind that removes the veils covering your true nature. And then you remember your original face, your true condition, and you wake up completely. As you inhale, removing the veils, and on the exhale, that recognition is stabilized. Now bring to mind those who are close to you, your family, your children, your friends, your neighbors. On the inhale, imagine the veils of non-recognition that obscure their minds are removed. As though your breath is a wind that removes the veils covering their true nature, suctioning it away. On the exhale, that recognition is stabilized. And expanding out now to people in your community, around you, perhaps in your town, in your state, in your country. In particularly those who are obstructed, the harm doers, and also those who are really in need of help. And on the inhale, imagining the veils of non-recognition that obscure their minds are being removed, like a vacuum cleaner drawing it out, suctioning it off. Just like your breath is a wind, removing the veils that cover their true nature, their Buddha nature. They then remember their original face and their true condition, and they wake up completely. And on each exhalation, that recognition is stabilized. And now finally expand to include all immeasurable mother sentient beings as vast as space, excluding no one, including all beings. And as you inhale, imagining for all beings the veils of non-recognition that obscure their minds are removed. And your breath is like a wind, removing those veils that cover their true nature, their Buddha nature. And they remember their original face. They remember their true condition. And they instantly wake up completely. And on the exhalation, that recognition is stabilized. It becomes stable for all beings. And by the end, all beings are seen in a state of stable realization of their true nature. Our true nature, which is unborn, unceasing, co-emergent, emptiness, radiance. And now dissolve the visualization and rest, anchored in the ground of being, resting in the eye of the storm. Just rest. And then we'll dedicate the merit, sending that out to all beings without one exception, and maybe in particular to those throughout the world who are suffering. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings never be separated from the supreme joy that is beyond all sorrow. May all beings abide in equanimity free from attachment and aversion. Thank you. I want to add at the end here that if you are feeling distressed or anxious or depressed, some of what I shared today might bring a lot up for many of us. And while our spiritual practice is really an incredible jewel and really, really helpful in life, sometimes we also need more. And it's important to find a qualified mental health professional to help you if you need it. And Lama Tsultrim really supports this. In fact, she once said that, at its best, psychotherapy is about waking up. And I really agree with that. There are many skillful psychological power tools these days, and I'll name a few, and I think there are some that are being chatted. But they are EMDR, internal family systems, somatic therapy, neural linguistic programming, Gestalt therapy, and many others. So I really urge you to seek help and know that meditation and psychotherapy can work very well together to help us relieve our suffering and to help the world. So it's a good thing to do, and it's okay not to be okay. So, and it's okay to reach out and get help. So, again, I invite you to join me for a weekend in January, and to learn more. If you want to learn more about this connection of suffering and healing, more about resilience and how to cultivate it, some of the other discoveries in modern neuroscience and polyvagal theory, then join me, and I'll help you to integrate these methods. So one other thing I want to share, I'm really excited to share this, is that we are taking a pilgrimage to Bhutan. And the last time we went was in 2017. And you might not know this, but there's space for 10 more people on the trip. And it's a really, really important pilgrimage for our lineage. And Lama might go, but either way, any of you who are serious about our lineage, the lineage of Machig, Labdrön, this is a really incredible trip. So we will be returning to Zangri Kangmar, which is Machig's seat that is in Bhutan, and dive deeply into the original Chit lineage. We're going to learn the melodies from Zangri Kangmar, which is in Tibet, and the Dakini dances that the Gomchens at Druk Zangri Kangmar perform. And these came directly from Zangri in Tibet to Bhutan at the time of the Chinese occupation. So they're no longer held in Zangri in Tibet, but they're held in Bhutan. And this is the closest we can get to the original practices from the historical lineage of Machig Labdrön. So Lama Tsultrim took a trip in 2017, and then they planned to go back, and we had a trip planned, but we had to delay it because of the pandemic. It's really important because we'll be able to receive the texts and the melodies. Well, the texts and the melodies and the relics were all taken from Tibet to Bhutan, and they were put in a stupa there. And this is the most direct contact with our lineage. And so it's going to be really an amazing pilgrimage. And also, Bhutan is really a very, very special place ecologically. one thing I learned about it is that Bhutan is one of the only carbon negative places in the world. And they have really taken environmentalists to a whole different level. And they do all kinds of things to keep an incredible balance. But of course, global warming and climate change has affected them drastically. So it's a really special place in that way. But also, there are many different kinds of orchids in Bhutan. There are about 369 species that are recorded. And it's the time of the orchid bloom. And this was really important to Lama Tsultrim, and she wanted to go during the time of the orchids. And they use them in Bhutan for medicine, and they use the orchids in temples. And also, really, this is a really incredible place. And because Lama has been there before and we have such a link to them, a connection, a karmic connection with them, we will receive a very warm welcome on this pilgrimage. And we'll be led by Sering, who is really an incredible tour guide. And he's Bhutanese, of course. And so it really will be a wonderful trip. And if you are at all interested, I encourage you to please sign up. And I think we found, I see here, if you're interested, then you'll email our pilgrimage coordinator, who is Jeremy Marple. And so that is in the chat. So if you really want to go, I urge you to. I'm going. So I hope you'll join us. All right. So it's been really wonderful being with you today. I thank you all for being here. I hope to see you again. And I thank Lama Tsultrim, my dear teacher, Drimé, and Tara Mandala, and our community. May you all be well and find happiness. And I hope that in some way this has been of benefit to you. And dedicating the merit, sending it out in all directions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, dear Polly. Thank you for bringing to the surface what many of us are hiding in shame and pain. And it's just so important to talk about it and learn how to relieve this suffering and bring it onto the path. Thank you so much. And thank you, dear audience, for willing to support each other, even by this presence here, now, live or later, for your comments, for your questions, and for your practice for the benefit of others. And so I'd like to invite you all to next Lama Live events this coming month. It will be a wonderful opportunity to meet with Lama Tsultrim Alyone, but also with our wonderful guests, Dr. Eve Ekman on November 6th, Dr. Dan Siegel on November 13th, Dr. Elisa Eppel on November 20th, and Carla Jackson Brewer on November 27th. Please remember, you can send in questions and prayer requests to both Lama La and our fantastic guests. And now I'd like to remind you that you can make a Dana offering to Polly Ryan for our time together today. And I hope you noticed the PayPal link I already posted in the chat. Dana is a Pali and Sanskrit word meaning generosity, and dating back to the time of the Buddha, there has always existed an interdependence between those who offer the teachings and those who receive them. No amount is too small in generating this auspicious interdependence that is created through Dana between the teacher and the student. Thank you so much, everyone. May we meet again and again on the path. and may all beings benefit everywhere. Thank you.
Om Tare Tu Re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu Re Mangalam Shri Mahapani Swaha. Om Tare Tu